Okay, hi people, this is Angie, Para Disney, Angela. I haven't learned to simulcast with Facebook and Twitter yet, so I will do a live stream just pointing people to this video. I'll do a live stream on Facebook a little bit later. Right, so I'm going to entitle this, "Is the Irish State About to Prosecute a Whistleblower, myself, a survivor, a child rights advocate, on behalf of Ricky Dearman, a UK citizen?" And because I am going to share this further afield from my normal reach, please God, please share, please subscribe, please like. I'll just give a little bit of my background that's relevant. I was a freelance journalist in Ireland in the 80s. I'm Anglo-Irish. I've lived here on and off since 1981, but I spent 5 years of that time in America and some of it in the UK, but my family home has been in Oldcastle in Meath since 1981. So I did a degree in English literature with subsets in theatre studies and American literature at Warwick University. And then I did a year postgrad course with Maurice Sweeney, sub-editing and design in Dublin, late features editor of the Irish Times. And then I published freelance in publications like the Irish Times. I had a half-page article in the Irish Times, The Politics of Hunger in Ethiopia. This was all around Live Aid, and with an editorial on that. So I published in the Cork Examiner, in Dublin magazine, which was a great publication, no longer exists. Games Across the Water was a short story I published in that. I published in the Meath Chronicle, the Anglo Cell, She magazine, Irish Tatler, and so on and so forth. So I was fairly well published with bylines in the 80s, but I emigrated to America because I wasn't earning a lot of money. And at that time, journalism was not my first preference, first love, whatever you want to call it, career-wise. But anyway, so as many of you know, when my youngest son went to college in 2015, I decided to go back online and try independent journalism online. And one of the first cases that came across I think everybody's path, I think up to 400 million people viewed these videos back in 2015, was the Hampstead case. And myself and, well, really thousands of people around the world tried to see what could be done for these children that had disclosed satanic ritual abuse at the hands of their father, their school teachers, their priest, and other social workers, and so on. For those that don't know, you can do your research on the Hampstead case. Sadly, in my opinion, it was covered up and unlawfully so. The two children's evidence corroborated each other's, and that was legal grounds for a criminal investigation, which never happened. And well, if it happened after the fact and covertly. The case was dealt with in family courts, and a 12-day fact-finding mission was all that was authorized to investigate the children's claims and disclosures. And then that judge issued her opinion that this was more a case of the mother and boyfriend coaching the children to make up those disclosures. I, as a survivor and as a journalist, have tried to empower people to judge for themselves, to see if they agree with my opinion that this was, well, there's a lot of facts and evidence to back up my opinion, but for people to make their own minds up by listening to the children's disclosures, looking at the medical reports, which were somewhat retracted and diluted or discredited afterwards, but the initial medical reports completely supported the children's disclosures. So I basically have been a voice to the best of my ability online without breaking the law. It was put forward possibly that there was a gagging order on naming the father or the children, or possibly the other co-accused by the children, in the UK. But that's been disproven very, very thoroughly and very capably by Matt Taylor, Guerrilla Democracy News, with the documents showing that the justice herself overruled that gagging at the end of the 12-day fact-finding mission when she herself named the father, at least the father. There may or may not be a law in the UK where children cannot be named, but I don't live in the UK, and my overriding feeling is that these children absolutely need a voice. They were very brave, and sadly things went a different way for them, and whether the father has full custody of them at this time or whether they're still in care and he's allowed unlimited unsupervised access, I don't know. But either way, I don't feel the children's best interests were served, and I think, you know, hundreds of thousands around the world agree with that. So Ricky Dearman, the father that was accused by the children, has taken harassment, having got his, you know, in my opinion, highly unlawful legal judgment heard in the family courts instead of a criminal court. He has then proceeded to take legal action against everybody that petitioned on behalf of the children or broadcast on behalf of the children, so on. And sadly, in the UK, he's had some success, the most notable being the children's activist, Sabine McNeill, disabled activist who's spoken in the European Parliament and had a very high, a very good reputation for her work in advocacy, was jailed for 9 years based on a court case taken by Ricky Dearman. That is, I believe there are moves to extradite her to Germany where she will be released. She's originally from Germany. But others got 9 months. Rupert Quaintance, the citizen journalist blogger from America that came over to do a documentary investigation, he was sentenced to 9 months and served 4.5 of them. And he's under a 5-year gagging order not to discuss the case for 5 years. Many others were cautioned, I think, and some also sectioned to silence them. So in some ways, I'm the last one standing. And the reason I'm coming online now is because it is looking likely. It's not confirmed at this point, but it is looking likely that the Irish government state will go ahead with a court case against me on behalf of Ricky Dearman. That's the way it works. The public prosecutor takes the case and Ricky Dearman, and no doubt he'll wheel out the same witnesses that he has done in Jake's case and Sabine's. And I'm just in a state of shock. This hasn't been confirmed, but again, filling in for those that aren't familiar, I'm not talking very loudly because I'm shaken. I am shaken by this. And I am appealing for support, for prayers. I'm not setting up a legal fund or whatever. I'm just really asking for people to come forward with their expertise and their brain power, mostly their prayers. But for those also that are maybe not familiar, in August, first of all, in June 2018, if I'm right, yeah, a video popped up on the internet of Ricky Dearman with the children, a public video, an eBay promotional video, which he had consented not just for himself to appear in, but the children. And that popped up and was sent to me, and I blogged about it without naming either Ricky Dearman or the children at that stage. I just knew that the die-hard core supporters of the children would know this is the children and they are with their father. And the day after I blogged without using their real names, they had assumed fake identities. I didn't disclose, but the day after, Hampstead Research did name the children and Ricky, and confirm that this was indeed himself and the children. So not long after that, Dearman flew to Ireland and tried to lodge online harassment charges against me with the Irish police and Garda Síochána. And 6 weeks after he'd done that, my house was raided on August 17th, 2018. My computer was taken, 2 laptops and my phone, and I still don't have them back a year and a half later. I was then informed in January 2019 that a file had been sent to the DPP with the charge or allegation of online harassment by Ricky Dearman. And a year later, I hadn't heard anything. And then just on Friday, I got an email from Google saying that Garda Síochána, which is the Irish police, had contacted them with a district court order to make my Google and YouTube data available to Garda Síochána. And kudos to Google for informing me of this. I'll share the email with you now. When I spoke to the police, they were surprised that Google had informed me of this. And at this stage, I'm not even sure if Google have given access. I've sent an email to try and find that out. Now let's see. Here it is. No, that's something else I'll share at the end. Let me see. Notification from Google. Here we go. Dear Angela Power Disney, Google has received a production order issued by the District Court on foot of a request from Garda Síochána compelling the release of information related to your Google account. The case number on the legal process is number 34.52. In the circumstances, Google may proceed to produce data responsive to the legal request. That's an interesting way of phrasing may proceed. For more information about how Google handles legal process, view our transparency report. I haven't looked at that yet, but I will. Google is not in a position to provide you with legal advice or discuss the substance of the legal process. A copy of the legal process will be provided upon request. I've put in a request for that. If you have other questions regarding this matter, we encourage you to contact a solicitor. At this stage, I'm not going to do that. The way I feel is that if Ireland is indeed hand in glove with the UK with regards to going after whistleblowers, particularly of child abuse, satanic ritual abuse, child sexual abuse, and so on, if the darker side of society is cooperating on this, no amount of good solicitors or legal gymnastics is going to save me. At the same time, I don't want to be naive. I'm not very familiar with common law. I have a feeling that I'm better off to represent myself, probably because this case is so complex and so detailed. It would be almost impossible to communicate 5 years of research and information and experience to a barrister. Sometimes barristers will give you 15 minutes at the beginning of representing you in court. So my instinct is to represent myself if it does go to court and take good legal advice. Maybe have a Mackenzie friend who's very au fait with legal situations, but that's the way I'm feeling at the moment, is to represent myself and have a very, very experienced Mackenzie friend, possibly a good solicitor, but not acting in their capacity as a solicitor, but rather as a Mackenzie friend. And I'm open to advice about that. And it's not definitely going to court yet. It says something else that says it may. Oh yes, and it says, by providing this response, Google Ireland Limited does not waive any objections as to jurisdiction or otherwise. Now, I have heard that Apple and different corporations are actually fighting this process of being demanded to release people's data. But the bottom line is, I have not ever objected to having any. When my computers were raided, I said to the detective involved, you know, you only needed to have asked. I would have given absolute access, and I still would give absolute access to the archives I've got and the evidence that I held, although a lot of it's been scrubbed from the internet. And I gave them my passwords. I completely cooperated with the Gardaí because I have nothing to hide. I've simply been a journalist and a survivor who listened to the children and believed them, and then saw a travesty of justice in how the case was handled unlawfully in the UK, and I've just kept speaking up for the children. I possibly should countersue for harassment, as I have a vast bundle of evidence of being threatened and intimidated. Indeed, it's still continuing, you know, against myself and had been against my children too. You know, the whole gamut of abuse, including I'm only an hour from you, you know, watch your back, check your backyard, to other people threatening to beat the crap out of me, and you know, what I would consider credible death threats, as well as horrendous online abuse. So that's another thing I would need legal advice, is whether to mount a counterclaim if this goes to court. I'm also waiting to hear from Google Ireland Limited. I didn't know subsidiaries of Google could be limited companies. That's another interesting thing. And another point to make, I think I got this news on Friday or Saturday, actually. I didn't check my email. I was away for the weekend. I didn't check my emails till Saturday. But I felt completely betrayed by the Irish. I know it's the norm that if somebody brings a charge, it's the state that prosecutes them and the complainant is a witness. I know that's the norm. But for An Garda Corner to help build a case on behalf of Ricky Dearman, I took it very personally, and I've been processing that for a few days. And I said as much to the detective sergeant, who apologized for not having warned me that they'd gone to the district court to get, you know, requisition my record. I don't know why. They've got my computers, and I left them all my access. They had full access to everything with my blessing. You know, I prefer if they didn't take my tech. I would have welcomed a detective into my office kitchen once a week or more, and I had offered this, to sit down for 2 hours and let me go through and direct whoever they delegated or assigned to you know, the evidence that exists, including my archive of videos. And I think I would be very shocked and disappointed if anything came of this. I do not believe I've been guilty of harassment at all. I think I've just been a persistent voice for the children and against injustice. And I think I would have a very successful counterclaim for myself being harassed and targeted. But there are other legal questions to raise with regard to Brexit. First of all, I went to my local guards in Oldcastle maybe 3 years ago, when I was getting death threats and horrific trolling from Hampstead Research and from accounts associated with Ricky Dearman and others. And I went to the police, the Gardaí here, and a guard called Martin Donoghue told me that there was no legislation in Ireland for cybercrime. And and then I've heard Richard Bruton, who I think got voted back in as an MEP. I heard him on the radio a week or two ago talking about trying to pass a bill about cybercrime in Ireland. So if that's not in existence, how can an online harassment claim by Ricky Dearman filed in 2018, how could that stand without the legislation being in place? And also, given the fact that Brexit has happened and the UK is no longer in the European Union, where does that leave things legally? Should the DPP decide to prosecute? I would say it's 50-50 at the moment, or possibly 60-40 in favour of them going forward. And I would very much hope that they're not trying to make an scapegoat example of me as an online journalist, with, you know, to bring in their new cybercrime laws in Ireland and then bring me to court, if you see what I'm saying. I don't know the legalities of that. And, you know, there's so many possibilities that could come into play. So, yeah, I would say at the moment it looks a 60-40 likelihood that the DPP will go forward with a prosecution. It's, even with an English accent, I grew up with an Irish Republican Catholic father and paternal family in the immediate generations. You know, a great uncle who had a 50-year IRA medal dating back to the 1916 rebellion, and an English Protestant mother who converted. So I grew up with this war in my house and in my home, the English-Irish thing, the Catholic Protestant thing. But to be honest, my affinity, my identity was always with republicanism. You know, the Troubles are behind us. Sinn Féin just changed the course of history in Irish politics. They secured as many seats as Fianna Fáil, except for Fianna Fáil got an extra one gratis because the Speaker of the House is automatically re-elected back to his seat. So, and Fine Gael came in third. I used to canvass for Sinn Féin and was very nostalgic. I had an expatriate's kind of love of the Republican movement, and I just distanced myself from them in light of inappropriate handling of child sexual abuse within the movement, within the IRA and Sinn Féin, specifically with Gerry Adams and covering up his brother's abuse of his niece, but other cases too, where Mary Lou McDonald kind of turned her back on survivors of IRA leaders, where family members had come forth and waved anonymity and disclosed, and they didn't, in my opinion, get dealt with properly by Sinn Féin. And then as Sinn Féin have seemed to veer into some George Soros kind of twilight zone where they supported abortion, you know, the abortion bill, making abortion legal in Ireland, and supported gay marriage bill, and support the mass immigration that's changing the face of Ireland and leaving a homelessness, you know, housing crisis. So having said all that, I still gave Johnny Girk my number 2 after Paddy Tobin, because Paddy Tobin's pro-life. Johnny Girk, I've known him for years, decades. He knows my mother, he knows my daughter. He's been a great guy, you know, as a councillor, a Sinn Féin councillor. He's done great work. Know him through the football, know him through my time with Sinn Féin. So having distanced myself from their politics, but I still do salute their victory, and I pray that they will do some good work, whether they go in with Fianna Fáil in a coalition, which Fianna Fáil swore wouldn't happen, whether they formed a coalition with the Independents and the Greens and Labour, and, you know, I still don't know if they'd make the 80 seats, but we'll see what unfolds there. But certainly I felt betrayed. I kind of feel like Ireland is a haven. It's always been renowned to be neutral. An Irish passport was always a good thing to have, traveling around the world. And so it will sadden me greatly if the Irish and Garda Síochána cooperate with Britain in what I believe would be a travesty and would be a huge attack on freedom of speech. You know, if citizen journalists, semi-retired journalists, abuse survivors, child advocates, children's rights advocates cannot speak freely on the internet, that's a very sad day, and I would hate to see Ireland go down that road. I've shared before, I respect and honour the Gardaí. I was raised to trust a policeman, and I will still honour them until proven wrong. You know, I organised, myself and others organised a charity soccer match against the Gardaí, you know, to foster good relations with the Gardaí in the town. And you know, we organised a draw where two youngsters went and spent the day at the barracks in Kells to see if it might be a career option for them, as well as with somebody else won a prize of going to spend a day with the ambulance service, and somebody else with the fire service. I've been a model citizen with a community spirit. I've served on parent-teacher associations and residents associations, and you know, the Kenya Project, and so on and so forth. So I'm not blowing my own trumpet. I'm just saying that the sense of betrayal, and I even tried to communicate this to Mark Luby, and he agreed that I had been nothing but respectful and cooperative from August 2018, and that yes, he should have given me a courtesy call and said that they were going to Google for access to my data, and that it was at this stage looking more likely than not that this would proceed to a court case. So and I said to him, I'm in shock, and I'm taking it personally, so maybe I shouldn't. And I will appeal to Drew Harris, who's also a controversial figure, but the new Garda Commissioner. I would appeal to anybody in a position of power and influence to please stop this madness. You know, I believe in legislation. I believe we need to keep our children safe online. I believe that child pornographers and paedophiles need to be rounded up, you know, and prosecuted. But using that legislation to go after journalists is in my opinion, a very wrong turn for Ireland. And the cooperation, I still can't get my head round that a UK citizen, Ricky Dearman, whose children accused him and others of horrendous abuse, their disclosures having been viewed by hundreds of millions around the world, I still can't get my head round that the DPP or Garda Síochána would help that father prosecute me for harassment. Anybody else that's familiar with my work would probably agree that I'm not abusive. You know, I do my best to lawfully and respectfully shine a light in the darkness. So I am discombobulated with this news. I am processing it. I do need good friends. I do need a lot of prayer. It's really a test of living in the day, you know. It's really test. I can't catastrophize. I can't, you know, when I first got raided, I was in such shock that my mind was just thinking, I'm going to jail, I'm going to jail, oh my God, oh my God. And that's a kind of a default for me when something scary and unexpected happens, like for me, it was shocking that Angarda Corner went to the district court. I wasn't informed of that, and petitioned to get a court order to access, which I had already said you can access it. I have nothing to hide. I would love you to shine a light on the Hampstead case. I would love you, as a country, Ireland, to say something wasn't right with that. Lots of things weren't right with that. Legal procedures were not followed with that. You know, that was an unlawful process. So, you know, I'm still going to think the best and prepare for the worst. That's probably the fairest way to sum up my response. Even though Saturday and Sunday I was just in a daze, thinking, you know, this really might happen, and it felt like, you know, if I end up in jail for telling the truth and speaking bravely, and persistently, and using whatever education and skills and passion I have for the good of children that can't rescue themselves, it would feel like a lifetime of injustice. So I've kind of pulled myself back from that kind of catastrophic thinking, even though I'm not being dramatic, because each person that Dearman has taken to court, he's managed to get a conviction on. Now, this is in the UK, and these were outrageous sentences and outcomes, in my opinion. And I'm not just speaking emotionally, I'm talking factually. There's marvelous research out there in abundance, and I think that's what should be being focused on, but at government levels, is not research trying to search for somewhere where I might have you know, upset an alleged paedophile. It would be far more fruitful to collate and examine the evidence based on the children's testimonies and corroborating the children's testimonies. Now, I had reported that my blog was down. It's not actually down, but a very strange thing has happened, which I do wonder if it's connected to you know, this possible court case, is that I can't access my blog. Anybody else can access it, angelascaches.org. But for myself to access it and go to my dashboard and update it and, you know, put my latest updates in, at the moment, the links are broken. I don't know why, just from my home. Even on mobile data or on a different device, the links are broken from my home to my blog, and I'm going to be working on resolving that. Angela Paradisney on Facebook is my larger work profile, and Angie Paradisney, also on Facebook, is a smaller profile, backup profile. The same with YouTube. I've got 2 channels, and I will try and get my blog. You can still go and look at my blog. There's a you know, on my YouTube channel. That this is what I'm saying. This is 5 years of complex chaos and mayhem without yet any justice, in my opinion. But the bottom line is, if the Irish government goes forward with a prosecution on behalf of an English citizen against me in Ireland, with the backdrop of no legislation and with the backdrop of Brexit, I think this is of national importance. So please share this. And I'm going to finish. You can, for those that just want the facts, you know, that's fine. But I'm going to finish with a teaching. I'm a Christian, as many of you know, and really it's only my faith going to get me through this, because this kind of stuff is just unpleasant. I know Brian Harvey went through, you know, what would you call it? Malicious harassment court case, but it collapsed or it didn't go ahead, whatever. He was very brave, and he chose the same route as me, and probably inspired me somewhat to stay public, to share this journey with you, rather than, oh, you know, don't go online, go under the radar, be quiet, you know, you're much less likely to get in trouble. No, the whole reason I came back online was to be a banner for truth and a voice for those that aren't heard. So why would I, in my defense, go quiet? Why would I, as an adult survivor of child abuse and trauma, why would I choose silence as the safer option? That only perpetuates abuse in our society in an unsafe environment for children. So I'm going to follow Brian Harvey's suit and just update you at every stage of these proceedings, and appreciate your input, your comments, your support, your prayers, whatever you can do. You know, thank you in advance. And I'm going to share a little teaching about persecution because it comforted me on the day when I really was panicking, because I'm only human. So let's see where that is. Where is it? Close that. Notifications. There it is. Here we go. I'll jump into this a little bit. It is good for me that I've been afflicted. This is hard to agree with, but just listen to it.
Back.
Chop the intro.
I'm Sean. We're continuing our study through Psalm 119.
Psalm 119.
And we're doing 4 sections at a time. And as we've discussed, the Psalm 119 is broken up by the alphabet, and it's broken up in 8 verse sections. And so we're going to be doing verses 65 through 96 this morning. And the theme of this whole psalm is really about walking in God's statutes, walking in his ways, walking in his commandments. And the psalmist is continuing to talk about the joy and the love and the passion that he has for doing that. And may it be so in our own hearts and souls. And as you know, Monday morning podcast, right now as we're working through these are just short podcasts. I just want you to have a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of encouragement to start your week.
Yeah, this is called
So
Truth
let's
Fed.
take a look.
This, I'll share the link for this in the description.
Starting with verse 65, Psalm 119. Thou hast dealt well with thy servant, O Lord, according unto thy word. Teach me good judgment and knowledge, for I have believed thy commandments. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I have kept thy word. Thou art good, and doest good. Teach me thy statutes. The proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep thy precepts with my whole heart. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy law. It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. The law of thy mouth is better unto me than 1,000 of gold and silver. Thy hands have made me and fashioned me. Give me understanding that I may learn thy commandments. They that fear thee will be glad when they see me, because I have hoped in thy word. I know, O Lord, that thy judgments are right, and that thou in faithfulness hast afflicted me. Let I pray thee thy let I pray thee thy merciful kindness be for my comfort according to thy word and unto thy servant. Let thy tender mercies come unto me that I may live, for thy law is my delight. Let the proud be ashamed, for they dealt perversely with me without a cause. But I will meditate in thy precepts. Let those that fear thee turn unto me, that those that have known thy testimonies. Let my heart be sound in thy statutes, that I be not ashamed. Real quick, I just want to pause. The psalmist here seems to be saying, hey, I'm being afflicted, but this is a good thing. God is allowing this, and it's a good thing because it's going to help me to walk closer in his ways. And many times, friends, this is why God allows adversity in our lives, to mold us, to shape us, to bring us closer to him in our need, that we might walk in more in a more righteous and holy way. Kind of our faith is being tested. It's being purified by fire. Let's look at it again. He says, in verse 71, it is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes. And then he says it again. A couple of verses later, in verse 75, he says, I know, O Lord, that thy judgments are right, and that thou in faithfulness has afflicted me. There's a lesson there for us, isn't there? Let's continue on. We've got 2 more sections. Verse 81. My soul fainteth for thy salvation, but I hope in thy word. My eyes fail for thy word, saying, when wilt thou comfort me? For I am become like a bottle in the smoke, yet I do not forget thy statutes. How many are the days of thy servant? When wilt thou execute judgment on them that persecute me? The proud have digged pits for me, which are not after thy law. All thy commandments are faithful. They persecute me wrongfully. Help thou me. They had almost consumed me upon the earth, but I forsook not thy precepts. Quicken me after thy loving kindness, so I shall keep the testimonies of thy mouth. Forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven. Thy faithfulness is unto all generations. Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. They continue this day according to thy ordinances for all thy servants. Unless thy law had been my delights, I should have been perished in my affliction. I will never forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast quickened me. I am thine, save me, for I have sought thy precepts. The wicked have waited for me to destroy me, but I will consider thy testimonies. I have seen an end of all perfection, but thy commandment is exceeding broad. That is our reading for this morning.
So that really encouraged me, and I hope it encouraged any of you that are going through persecutions. I think I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to hearing from you, those of you who are supportive of freedom of speech and the rights of victims and survivors to speak out. God bless Gabriel and Lisa. God bless, I don't want to say that other catchphrase for fear of being associated with somebody that let the survivor community down, but my prayers are always for the it's just who I am. It's not just the Hampstead case I've covered, and I think I may have exacerbated the situation in Ireland by interviews I've done with other survivors, such as the niece of an Irish politician, and also going against Garda corruption, of which there is a problem in Ireland as well as everywhere else in the world. But I still err on the side of there are more good than evil people. So we just need the good people to speak up, step up, and pray. Thanks. God bless.